The next section, 2.5, is dividing fractions. And the directions here say to divide and simplify. Now, the way we divide fractions is we're going to leave the first fraction alone. So I'm going to leave that as 2 over 3. Now, the process in dividing fractions says we're going to change that division symbol to a multiplication symbol. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take what we call the reciprocal of 5 over 6. The reciprocal simply means to flip the fraction. 6 over 5. Now, this is a multiplication problem. This is what we just got finished doing in section 2.4. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to ask myself, will any numbers on the top reduce with any of the numbers on the bottom? I can reduce 3 and 6 both by 3. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 6 2 times. When I multiply straight across, I end up with 4 over 5. For my next problem, I'm going to do it exactly the same way. I'm going to take 5 over 8. I'm going to multiply it by the reciprocal of this fraction, which means I need to flip it. That's going to become 4 over 3. Again, I'm going to ask myself, can I reduce any fractions? Well, any number on the top reduce with any numbers on the bottom. We can reduce 4 and 8 both by 4. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 goes into 8 2 times. When I multiply straight across, I end up with 5 over 6. For my next problem here, I'm going to do this the same exact way. So this is going to give me 6 over 15 times 5 over 12. And I'm going to ask myself, can I reduce any numbers on the top with any numbers on the bottom? So 5 reduces into 5 once. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 6 goes into 6 once. 6 goes into 12 2 times. When I multiply straight across, that leaves me with 1 over 6. For my next problem here, I'm going to do this exactly the same way. I'm going to take 5 over 8 times 8 over 3. Again, my 8s will reduce. 8 goes in 8 once. 8 goes in 8 once, so my answer is just 5 over 3. Now, I want to give you a moment to try this one here. This would be a good time to hit pause on the screen and give yourself a time to see if you can work it out. So your first step should have been to rewrite this as 3 over 25 times 40 over 27. Your next step could be to reduce some of those numbers. So 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 27 9 times. We can also reduce 25 and 40 both by 5. That goes 5. This goes in 8 times. And if I multiply straight across, 1 times 8 leaves me with 8. 5 times 9 leaves me with 45. For my next problem here, this is going to be 0. I can think about 0 as 0 over 1 times, I'm going to flip this one, 8 over 7. Well, 0 times anything is still 0. Okay, so for the next problem I have here, I have 2/3 divided by 0. Now, if you recall, we don't want to divide by 0. Anytime we divide by 0 is when we end up with what we refer to as undefined, right? Okay, so for the next one here, I have 2/3 divided by 4. Now, I want to think about 4 as a fraction. So my first step is I'm going to think of that as 4 over 1. So remember, when I multiply or divide fractions, I'm going to take this 2 over 3 times, I'm going to take the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 4 over 1 would be 1 over 4. Now, I can go ahead and reduce my fraction. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 4 2 times. When I multiply straight across, I end up with 1 over 6. For my last problem that I have here, I'm going to think of this very much like the way I did the problem before. I want to think of my number 7, 7 over 1. So remember, that's 7 over 1 times the reciprocal, which just means to flip the second fraction. So the reciprocal of 2 over 11 would be 11 over 2. Now, I notice that I cannot reduce any of my numbers on the top with any of my numbers on the bottom. So 7 times 11 would give me 77 all over 2. And that's how you divide fractions.